Hello and welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Leaders Podcast with me, Mark Bracknell, Managing Director of Theo James Recruitment. Today we have Paul Hind on the show. Couldn't wait to have Paul on. Paul has been in manufacturing for over 30 years, 25 of those being with 3M Newton Aycliffe. For the last year, 10 of those being plant manager. Paul has recently left 3M to start his own business called Amplified Leaders, which actually launches this week, and I'm so excited to talk to Paul about his amazing journey through manufacturing, through 3M, coming from essentially a fitter, quality, right the way through to plant manager. We talk in detail about the importance of safety in a workplace, which ultimately is the reason why Paul has decided to take a leap of faith and start his own business. He's on a mission to make staff become safer, happier, and more productive. And in his workshops, that is exactly what he's trying to do, to take people away and get them to understand the importance of safety and actually how you change a culture in a workplace. As a leader, as leaders of any business, we have a responsibility to our staff. We have a responsibility to keep people safe and create a culture where they're in a safe, happy environment. We talk in detail about that. We talk in detail about exactly how you can start today to start to change that culture in the workplace and be safer and happier. This was a real fascinating and fun conversation, but actually one you're going to come away with lots of tips and techniques. I think Paul is tremendous at what he does. I think it's fantastic what he's doing to really help businesses move forward now. All his contact details will be there. So please sit back and listen and learn from this one. And please just click that like and subscribe button. It means the world to me. It means we can keep growing the show. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the episode. Excellent. A massive warm welcome this morning to Paul Hind. Can't wait to interview Paul. Paul is the ex-plant manager at 3M, recently moved on, started his own business called Amplified Leaders, which I can't wait to hear about. I'm sure everyone listening knows Paul very well. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Really good. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your time this morning to do this for me as well. So I'm excited. Let's see where the chat takes us.
Yeah, can't wait, Paul. Right, same question I ask everyone when they first come on. What does it mean to you to be a leader?
Well, it's a position of great responsibility. It's the best job I think I've had, and I've had some great jobs over the years. I really enjoy leading teams of people. I really enjoy leading a plant as well. It's been a difficult decision for me to move on and start out on my own, but it's something I've always thought about doing. What I would say about leadership in particular, it's interesting that we still talk about people's roles as being managers. And there's a stigma that you should be a leader and not a manager. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. But I also believe 20% of the job is management. And it's a skill, it's an art, it's something that you hone over the years as well. I'd love to be a leader 100% of the time, but it's probably an 80-20 split. And it's so interesting. So when you think about ISO auditing, they still talk about management responsibilities. When you look at Health and Safety at Work Act, it talks about management responsibilities. I think a good leader can become a good manager. And a good manager, I think it's harder for them to become a good leader because we've all had bad managers before where we're being micromanaged. But I think as a leader, you have to be inspirational. You have to set the tone. It's a key position. You can't live without it. You're not just a talisman. You've got to really roll your sleeves up and get involved in leadership. And you want your leaders to lead as well. And those people, again, for their people to lead to. And really, you want leaders all across the whole of the organization, not just at the top.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do you think you can, because I guess a lot of the training out there is exactly what you said. It's more about the management, it's coaching management, and it might be called coaching leadership, but they are two different things. Do you think you can coach that almost inspirational, sort of the motivational leadership piece? Or is that more people are born with it?
I think, yeah, it's an interesting one, nature and nurture, isn't it? I think it can be taught, yeah. But I also think there is something inherent in people. Are they a leader or not? Don't get me wrong. I think with experience, yes, you can absolutely coach that. And it takes a bit of time and it takes a little bit of, you need a few scars along the way as well, from learning from things done wrong as well. I think that's really important, because the man who makes no mistakes makes nothing. So it is a coachable skill, but I also think sometimes there's some people are just natural born leaders. But yeah, I think actually that when we talk about the management, I think that's something that can be trained as well. When you're having to give your first disciplinary, for instance, I'm sure everybody's been through this. It's you don't sleep the night before, you worry about it, and actually when the time comes, it's actually quite simple, and your skin gets thicker, and it gets thicker again. So yeah, I guess that's everything's coachable, everything's teachable, but I think there are some people who are just naturally born leaders.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Obviously, we've spoken before, and obviously I knew of you, Paul. But the first time I experienced you really talking was quite recently, actually, at the Make Your Mark Awards at Newton Aycliffe, when you spoke and did a great speech in a very nerve-wracking situation. It's quite an intimate, big but quite intimate room, that, isn't it? So, and it was fascinating, and everyone there got to hear your journey. I'm not going to ask you to regurgitate the full talk, don't worry. But I'd be keen to go back, I guess, in terms of your early days, because I think people, and I'm certainly very fascinated by people who become such good leaders, where they started from, and if that really was something that you always wanted to be. So where did that journey begin? Obviously a local lad.
Yeah, I'm from Aycliffe, and I got an apprenticeship with Thorn Lighting. That's going back a while now, 1992, and I had a really good apprenticeship there. It was a big site. And the first year was spent at South West Durham Training, who I'm strongly affiliated with still, because I mean, back in them days, there was 200, 250 apprentices every year rolling through, when apprenticeships were really in their pomp. And yeah, so I started my life out as a multi-skilled maintainer, mechanical, electrical, although I did kind of sway more towards the mechanical side. I got my HNC in mechatronics. I had a fabulous apprenticeship with lots of good pals, met along the way, who I still bump into now and again, who I've still worked with through all these years as well. So, and that kind of first year at Southwest Durham was really just the basic skills to get by in terms of engineering. You don't really learn until you come out of your apprenticeship, I don't think. That first night shift flying solo, it's pretty terrifying for any kid, even though you're 20, 21 years old. It's still a little bit terrifying, but I'm a product of the shop floor. I'm very proud product of the shop floor. So when people talk to me about, oh, I'm working 12-hour night shifts, and I've been there and done it. I've emptied the bins at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I think that does give me a little bit of an edge as a leader, is kind of understanding and knowing where you've come from. So yeah, that was my start at Thorn Lighting. I did 6 years there. I had a little sojourn down to London for about a year as well. I was a toolmaker down there. I tried a few different jobs when I was down in London, but I was keen to get home to family and friends. When I came back, I worked at Shot Industrial Glass for about 6 months before I applied for 3M, and I worked at 3M for about 25 years. I started there as a maintenance fitter, did a variety of different jobs. After about 3 or 4 years as a maintenance fitter, I tried my hand at R&D. I was affectionately known as the CAD monkey, because I really liked it. For me, doing CAD, it was all 3D. It was like tool making without getting your hands dirty. So I really enjoyed that job. I then started to do some product maintenance, some product development work. R&D for me, I was kind of juggling 10 projects, and you're at the mercy of who needs to do the next piece of work in R&D. So although you're juggling 10 projects, packaging might be holding things up. And that's not a slur on packaging. I'm just using that as an example. But you can't take that project any further forward. You're depending on someone else. And I kind of missed the humdrum activity of manufacturing, that every day is different, that variety and that pace. So I found a way back into manufacturing. And I went into a job that I never, ever thought I'd go into, because I always, looking from the outside in, I thought it was quite boring. But I got into quality. That was the only way I could kind of get back into manufacturing, and I absolutely loved it. I was in quality for around about 4 or 5 years. I made my way up to quality group leader, which is like a middle management position. But probably is one of the toughest jobs I've had, if I'm being honest. I had a team of about 17 people. And then I kind of sojourned into being more of a quality specialist across Europe. So they were setting up brand new facilities, one in Poland. They were transferring products from Sweden to Poland. We had a plant in Russia, 2 plants in Turkey. So I was getting to travel around and see other plants. And the thought process was, Paul, go out there and make them as good as 3M Aycliffe. And, I was coming back and saying, they're already quite good, and actually 3M Aycliffe can learn from some of this as well. So what I did was I just started up a little bit of a competition between the sites in terms of how your metrics, how's your approach, and that became a global scorecard at the time. And that's kind of when I got noticed a little bit. There was a job going in Aycliffe as a production manager. And I threw my hat into the ring, and the plant manager didn't really know me because I was out traveling quite a lot. And a guy called Sean Morley, who was the plant manager at the time, he decided to give me a chance at it. And that was 2010. And that's really when I got into management. So about 14 years ago, I had a crack at that. I was in that job for about 3 years, and I was picked to become a plant manager at one of our plants down in Swansea. So a place called Gorsinan, a huge site. Back in its day, there was 1,500 people there, but they had kind of had a lot of redundancies, unfortunately, just based on the market. They used to make videotapes, Scotch videotapes. You may remember those adverts from back in the day. Interestingly enough, sometimes because they had a lifetime guarantee, sometimes you would still get VHS tapes sent into you. What we're going to do with these, So, but it was a hell of a job. They made hook and loop fasteners and elastics and soft edge masking tape, and brilliant people. Gorsinan for me was a home from home because it's pit village mentality. There was lots of mining, open cast mine that happened down that way. And they really welcomed me with open arms. But it was my first foray into plant management, and I got some scars from that, as you'd expect. I did about 3.5, 4 years there. I was then asked to become, this sounds way cooler than what it is, I was asked to become a master black belt. So obviously it's the Lean Six Sigma methodology. So I had black belts up and down the country. We had 9 sites in the UK at the time. I then moved over into Europe and looked after the healthcare sites as well. So that was something that wasn't in my skill set, healthcare. So I learned a lot about that during my time doing that. And then it was April 2020 when I got the 3M Aycliffe plant manager's job. So obviously that's my home plant. It's a big deal for me. There was this thing called COVID. I don't know if you remember it, Mark. Well, basically, March 2020 was when it really all kicked off. So I went into, one of the flagship sites during a time where there wasn't enough hours in the day to make the products that we wanted to make. And actually, after the COVID pandemic died down, you can imagine everywhere was full of respirators. That's what we manufacture at 3M Aycliffe. So everywhere is chock-a-block with respirators. We then had a huge downturn, which resulted in redundancies. So I kind of seen the best and worst of the site. Yeah. We'd been through pandemics before in 2000 and, let me get these dates right, I think 2004, 2006, 2008, we had SARS, swine flu, avian flu, maybe not in that order. And they kind of lasted for 4 months before, it kind of tailed off again. But with COVID, it was 2 years. And obviously the social distancing aspect in manufacturing, which I'm sure everybody remembers and went through, it was tough, but we had a part to play there. We really did. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of a potted history about my.
No, it's interesting. But why do you think? Because I'm always fascinated by this. I'm always fascinated by companies that manage to keep people for so long. And 3M is one of those companies where it's a job for life for a lot of people. and that isn't the norm, I guess. If you look at people now, they'll jump about. What is that down to culture? Is that down to training? What would you put that down to? Would you say why someone like yourself stayed there for so long, 20 years?
Um, Wow, I mean, they've done so much for me, and I think that's really the essence of it. Look, it's well paid. That's a great
Yeah, yeah,
start. And that's what attracts people to a company. I think at first, we all
definitely.
got to go to work.
Yeah,
So getting good pay is one thing, but then there's the benefits that go alongside that as well. So we have a physio that is there every Monday to help people out if they've got any aches or pains. It keeps them in work, but also it shows you that we care about you as well. Great pension, of course, that always helps. But ultimately, I think that the defining factor about why people stay at a company so long, it's how you're treated. Um, they put me through my degree with the Open University, so they paid for that. That was another 5 years that I did that over, which was hard when I was working shifts and things like that. But I'm forever indebted to them. The opportunities. I changed job typically every 2 to 3 years.
right.
So trajectory of career was another thing that really kept me there, and just the leaders who I work with across those years, some amazing leaders. And what I've tried to do, and I'm sure what everybody else tries to do, is you take that little bit of goodness that how they treated you, and how can I make them my people feel like $1 million, and also there's the bad ones as well where it wasn't so good. Stay away from that kind of stuff, and hopefully that shapes and hones you as a leader for the future. Um, so yeah, it's been a brilliant place to work. Almost 25 years there, and I wouldn't change a thing. They were brilliant with me, and just some fine people. The shop floor guys as well. I mean, I love manufacturing. There's nothing better than being out on the shop floor and chatting to people, whether it's just a general chat or whether we're chatting about graft. Um, People in manufacturing are very honest, they're very blunt, and I love that. I really love that about people.
I liked how on the time you mentioned in terms of when you were competing. In terms of I like what you said there. In terms of you got the two factors to compete with each other and almost almost gamify, I guess, something which was a very serious and a big issue for the site that time. That was that within the health and safety side piece, I guess. Was that way?
It was more the quality side of things. I was doing that, and there
Yeah.
was, it's not perfect. Sometimes it can rub people up the wrong way as well. But I see it as best practice sharing, and that's ultimately what it's about. So these guys over here are doing this, and you're not, and they're getting these results, and you're not. So let's have a look at your approach.
Yeah.
I think that was the kind of, it's a little bit carrot and stick, I guess, using kind of competition. It's got to be used in the right way, and it depends on the person that you're dealing with as well, because it can switch people off too. But at the same time, I was just striking out in my first foray as kind of as a leader, and I thought, let's dare to be different. Let's try and do something, and it was quite successful as well. I'd robbed off other people as to how to do it. I didn't just make it up on the spot. I'd seen what had happened before. I felt how I was treated when I was asked to compete against others,
Yeah.
and it brought a fire within me that it made me change. So it's not. It's horses for courses. You've got to watch out who you're dealing with, and when you're asking people to compete in that way. But actually, overall, the benefits we got from it were significant.
Yeah, and I suppose you're trying to get them to be proud of the environment they're in, ultimately, aren't they? And that and this, it's important stuff, and as important, obviously, with the health and safety piece, which obviously I know you're very very passionate about. And in regard to the health and safety, or just overall safety in the workplace, that's sometimes overlooked in companies. It's interesting. 'Cause, I mean, we get feedback all the time. Why people want to leave companies, obviously, and we get that daily. And people don't realize that. So that is a reason why people will leave a company, not join a company, because they go, it's not safe in there. It's not safe, and people have got families, they've got things to think about, responsibilities, and I don't really hear that many companies talking about that very often. As that being their absolute priority. Was that different at 3M? Because I know that I know that's something that obviously you've been passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, when I walked into 3M on my first day there, they put me with the kind of the best people they've got in the factory, and I I came home after the first 3 days thinking, wow, I really need to up my game. I was put with another fitter for about 7 weeks before I flew solo, and he was brilliant. His name was Ronnie Norton. And that first day, Mark, he said to me, all right, the canteen's upstairs. By the way, you need to hold the handrail. We walk up on the left and we come down on the left. And I was kind of looking at him, kind of, what do you mean? It's just something we do here. We hold the handrail, so if we trip over, at least you've got something to save you from hurting yourself. And I was like, oh, okay. But there was the fact that it was another fitter telling me that. It wasn't a leader, it wasn't a manager, it wasn't my gaffer who was saying, you need to do this, so do it. We're watching you. It was somebody from the shop floor who told me to do that. And that stayed with me for years. Holding handrails is one of my, really, really big things. Also, walking around with mobile phones, that's the other one. Since they've been introduced, people walking around and not watching where they're going. So the policy I have on my side is when you go up and downstairs, you hold the handrail, and when you're moving around, you don't look at your phone. And that's something that 3M implemented just a few years ago, but this was 25 years ago. It was already there. And when I walked into 3M, we were winning all sorts of awards for safety. I'll talk a little bit later about how actually that declined because we took our eye off the ball. And that wasn't just in that plant, it was across the whole company. And just about 2 years ago, 3M decided to really, with a lot of gusto, reintroduce health and safety into the plant. I mean, pretty good stats as a company, but things were starting to slip. And it goes back to that point about how do you keep someone working for you? You've got to care about them. Yeah. And care is looking after them. You've also got a legal responsibility to make sure your people are safe as well. And having seen some incidents and accidents myself, I am super passionate about safety. So everything starts with safety. Morning meetings, we talk about safety first. And actually, safety will dominate the discussions that we have as a leadership team. So if we've got an hour planned in, more than half will probably be around safety, because I've been a big fan of if you got your safety right, you get your quality right, everything else follows. You'll get your service, you'll get your cost, you'll get your productivity, and you'll get your engagement. But those two, if you get safety and quality right, you're off to the races.
Do you think companies sometimes don't prioritize those because they don't realize the importance?
Yeah. And it's frightening when you think about it. There are some companies in a cultural trance where they are thinking they are a lot better than what they are. Mm-hmm. I thought I was a lot better than what I was. And I've got a bit of a mentor now, a guy called Lee Lawrence, who kind of came in. And when I heard that he was coming in to talk to us about safety, I was like, who's this guy to teach me about health and safety? I know it all. And actually, it was a real wake-up call for me. It was one of the best days I'd had in manufacturing. Lee presented what he presents, which actually I'm ripping off. I asked him if it was okay to rip him off, and he's been super supportive. But it really shook me to the core in thinking, I am not giving this enough time and credibility. And I need to be able to do this so my team does it so that everybody else does it on site. So, yeah, it's the cultural trance piece that people think they're better than what they are. And also, I mentioned this before. I mean, we had a 5-year accident-free, 5 years lost time incident, lost time injury-free. That was around about 2002 to 2006, something like that. And we thought we were the bee's knees. Of course, we had an incident and we go, well, we're still good. It's about the mean time between incidents. Mm-hmm. We're still good. And every time we had an incident, we're still good. Mm-hmm. And you start to kid yourself into thinking that you're better than what you are. So even when I go into places where, we've got a brilliant safety record, we've 2 years without a lost time incident. Well, actually, lost time incidents aren't what you want to be looking at. Mm-hmm. What you want to be looking at is, have you hurt someone? And even prior to that is, what are the unsafe acts that are going to hurt someone? That's what you need to be looking for. We're too busy looking in the rearview mirror at our stats. And actually what we want to be looking at is, where can it go wrong? What's the next accident? What's the next incident that we're going to have? And it doesn't need to be safety; it could be environmental as well. So having a crystal ball is a wonderful thing, but like I say, I'm so passionate about it now. It's really reignited something in me that I'd had before that I'd lost, and then trying to get it back again is actually 10 times harder than what you'd think. So if you can get to that level where you've got a really, really strong safety record, you've got to double down and keep going, because it'll wither away.
Apologies for interrupting this podcast for a very quick 30-second pitch of my business. Theo James are a specialist manufacturing and engineering recruitment search firm based in Seaham in the Northeast. If you're looking for any staff or a new opportunity yourself, from a semi-skilled level right the way up to C-suite executive, then please get in touch. We have a specialist consultant in each discipline ready to help. I'm extremely proud of what we've built over the years, and I'd love to extend that service out to you. Thank you. Enjoy the podcast. Yeah, love that. And I love what you're talking about there when you first started, because you're exactly right. If it's just a manager telling people, then it just becomes white noise. But the fact that fitter said to you about the railings piece, that's probably as normal to him as brushing his teeth in the morning, because that culture is just it's in him now. It's just a part of his job. But that is so easy not to have in a business. You know what I mean? If it's just a leader telling you what to do all the time. How do you, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and they don't have that culture, and then they'd like to get to a stage where that is common practice and they're just everyday habits. What are almost a low-hanging fruit, or the things they can start to do to sort of put things in place, would you say, to change that culture?
Yeah, and this is kind of part of my workshops as well. So slips, trips, and falls account for about 50% of all workplace injuries. Therefore, if you focus on slip, trips, and falls, you'll be able to halve your safety incident rate. And the funny thing is, when you start talking to people about, put a handrail policy in at work, I mean, that's a key thing. Or maybe it's a safety knife policy for hand injuries. That's another big one. But if you start working on some of that stuff there, as a plant manager, if I walk past a puddle on the floor, that's telling everybody else that you walk past that puddle. I'll get some blue roll, I'll wipe it up, and I'll understand, well, where's it come from? What are we doing to fix it? You've got to be absolutely, full on with your intent to make safety work, and you've got to lead by example. So even if it's a little piece of paper on the floor, I will make a point of picking it up, because everyone's watching me as a leader. And if I'm doing that, and if I can get 550 people to do the same thing, it's a tidal wave. You can't beat having 550 people doing the same stuff that you're doing. So sorry, I forgot a question a little bit there, Mark. I rambled on a bit.
No, you're answering it basically. It was in terms of, exactly that. What can leaders do to try to start to change that culture? Because I'm sure, there's loads of factories which doesn't have the same sort of positive habits that you'd have had there at 3M. And I'm sure as leaders thinking, it's just too big of a job. Where do I start? I guess it's that first point. So you're answering that in terms of that. I guess for them, it is starting to set those standards initially. And that hopefully will sort of trickle down, I guess.
Well, it isn't, and you will get the eye rolls from people about, you'll catch somebody walking down the stairs and not holding the handrail, so I'll pull them. You've got to pull them there and then, otherwise, if they walk down the path, say you didn't hold the handrail, yes, I did, because unsafe acts are evaporative, So there's some simple things that you can put in place. The big four really are slips, trips, and falls, hand injuries, ergonomics, and moving vehicles. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't call them forklift trucks. I call them killer machines, because they have been proven to kill people on several occasions. But even the handrail policy, if someone kind of rolls their eyes like, oh, it's a nanny state, well, I'll say, well, my daughter is walking down the stairs. She's got a bowl of cereal. She's got her iPad, and she's got something under her chin. And I will send her straight back upstairs, as I'm sure you would with your kids as well, Mark, is you don't do that. You hold the handrail. So, because if you fall down the stairs and we're in A&E, we're going to be waiting there for 4 or 5 hours. You might break a bone, all for what? For not holding the handrail. One of our plants, somebody tripped on the stairs and broke a leg. So when people kind of roll their eyes at me saying it's, this is crazy. You wouldn't do this stuff at home. You do it at home. And I'm asking you to do it, and I'm asking you nicely to do it because I care about you. That's really as simple as that. So when you talk about hand injuries, glove policy, safety knives, I've had many an amnesty on share with me your open Stanley blade knives, because the injuries you get from them are horrific. Use scissors where possible, but the safety knives that are out there at the moment are fantastic. And what we say is, if you're saying that you need to use a Stanley blade, well, okay, let's risk assess it. Let's take a look at the job. Let's look into it. PIVs, powered industrial vehicles. I keep talking in acronyms. You've got to segregate your pedestrians from your forklift trucks as much as you possibly can, and that's hard, because when somebody comes off a forklift truck, they become a pedestrian. But we implemented air-safe barriers everywhere, and mag locks as well. In terms of when a forklift truck goes past, it locks the gates for you. It actually slows the forklift truck down. We put a lot of money and time and effort into doing those things. And then ergonomics, you only get to see ergonomics by being out on the shop floor. You can't lead safety from your laptop. You've got to be out there and present, and you need your team out there and present as well.
Yeah, anyways, I love what you're talking about in terms of the analogy with the children, because you're absolutely right. As parents, we are honed in throughout the day to look for their safety. When they're little, everything is about their safety in terms of, I think, if I'm walking the kids to school, he's too close to the road, so everything. But you don't necessarily have that mentality. You just presume, as people, adults, they will look after their own safety. When in their workplace, we are responsible. Now, okay, I'm in an office environment, so it's perhaps not as hazardous, but in a factory environment where there's a million things that could cause damage, then you'd need to have that same sort of responsibility on your shoulders as you do as a parent. So it's a really, really good analogy, because essentially it's your job as leader to keep them safe, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've listened to plant managers where they've had a fatality on their site, and even 2 years later, they tear up at the fact that what had actually happened. And it wasn't just about the person who died; it was the family that they had to go and talk to. It was the town that person came from. It's about how the plant felt for years after that. I mean, thank God I never had a fatality in my site. But can you imagine, you can go through your whole career, 40, 45-year career, and the one thing that's going to really stand out like a sore thumb is we killed someone. And we absolutely have no right to hurt anybody. We have no right to hurt the environment when we're manufacturing. Just imagine, waking up every single day knowing that you'd killed someone. I don't ever want to be in. I mean, actually, maiming someone would be bad enough. Someone losing a digit would be bad enough, let alone killing someone. So, every plant manager who had a fatality on their site as well, we never thought it would happen here. We thought we were safe.
Yeah.
And that rings in my mind every single day. And as a leader, one of the things that you don't want is a phone call on a night. And in fact, my phone would go off, and I would sit there, and my blood would run cold. That's your first instinct as a plant manager. Oh my God, I hope somebody's all right. And 9 times out of 10 it is. Oh, they're looking for something completely different. But it's like, ooh, right, don't ring me. We could have done this tomorrow, But I think plant managers, any leader in a site, has that permanent ring of fear that you're going to get a phone call where someone's being hurt, and the only way to combat that is be the best that you can be when you're at work, to make sure that people are working safely. And people don't just do those things, do the safe things on day shift when the gaffers are in. It's got to be 4 o'clock in the morning when people are a little tired, and you're on shift patterns, you're kind of thrown about a bit. If you can get them to display those habits when you're not there, that's when you've won.
Yeah, 100%. And all these accidents, they shouldn't happen because there's rules in place, and that's it. And it shouldn't be an accident, because that's the whole point, isn't it? The whole point is to stick to the rules. It shouldn't happen. So, and I love it when I walk around sites, because I do on a weekly basis. I love it when they are advertising the period of time they've had without an accident, and it's a long period of time, because everyone talks now about employee value proposition, EVP, and that's now which isn't a new thing. That's just how you sell the business. And that is a great way to sell the business that you want, a safe place and that everyone appreciates and takes culture and safety really, really seriously. And it's something that needs to be done. So I think this is really important stuff to talk about, which is why I wanted to get you on and why what you're doing, Paul, is so important. I know it's on your LinkedIn, your values, you want to make sure the environments are safer, happier, and ultimately more productive, which I think are 3 billion things to live by, which is all from talking to you, it's obvious how important that is to you. And a lot of people that will be important because perhaps they've had a death in their watch or something, but you haven't. So that's just, where's that come from, you think?
Oh, that's a tough one. Got little bits and pieces from everywhere. I mean, we talk about caring about people and they want to work in a safe environment. They also want to work in a clean and tidy environment, and a clean and tidy environment leads to a safer environment as well. So you don't want someone to be cold in the winter or too hot during the summer. And we've had many leaks in our factory. Nobody wants a leaky roof. It's the plant manager's curse, isn't it? Ignore the roof at your peril. But every factory I go to, there's leaks in the roof. It's how you handle those and how you're gonna. You've also got to communicate to your people about what you're doing about things like that. If you don't communicate, people think nothing's happening. So communication is such a massive aspect on safety. Sharing incidents that happened in other sites. So when you ask the question, where did it come from? I think just over the years, just little things have kind of amounted and totted up to kind of just okay, trigger. This is what we need to do, and I may be I may be doing something on cost down or productivity, and actually there's something there that's on safety. I will just veer off from that cost and productivity and just focus on the safety because that's 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 the best thing that you can do in that whole meeting. It's not about saving a few pounds here and there. You've got to keep your people safe. So I will always prioritize that. And as I'm going around sites, my workshop is designed to get people away from the laptop because these things, there's so many more systems these days. There's so many more emails to deal with. And you can quite comfortably sit at your laptop 8, 9 hours a day and get completely locked in there, and you'll never beat it. What I'm saying is, what your people need on the shop floor is they need you to be out and about, walking around. So my workshop coaches people how to go out and do effective shop floor safety walks. And you'll say, right, we're going to go to this area now. Let's go there. And half the time, you never even get to that area because you've picked up on a couple of things that you've seen people doing, and let's just have a little chat about this. Why are you doing it that way? And, what's the standard here? What should we be doing? And interestingly, the first thing when a plant manager walks up to you, it's like, oh God, what's he going to say? And defense mechanism comes up. You've got to break that down, and you've got to get on a level with that person to really understand. So this is what Lee Lawrence coached me in, and it really triggered something in my mind as to think, I'm really enjoying this, and I think I could do this. And the fact that I get a chance to go around different plants now and look at where they are, they're all in different states of where they are. Some are amazing, but there's always stuff there. It doesn't matter how good you think you are on your site. We call them crocodiles. There's thousands of them out there, and it's just knowing where to spot them, and then actually fronting up with someone and saying, "So are we going to fix this? What are we going to do about it?" And the key is you put it on that person. You don't walk away with a list yourself. So the safety walk is it gets there, it gets done, and it gets done at the right level rather than you picking everything up and taking it on your own chin. So I really enjoy what I've been taught to do, and I really enjoy coaching people on it as well. And normally you end up and the person's actually a lot happier that they've just been engaged with and that actually care about them, and they are important to me. So that's what I'm doing with these workshops. It's getting leaders out and about because nobody wants to spend 9 hours on a laptop. Actually, what your job is to look after your people in the plant.
Yeah, love that. I know. One more thing I want to ask you as well is I know you talk about this on your one of your in terms of what you can do now with Amplified Leaders, but I'm interested myself. The Five Dysfunctions, in terms of that side, I know that's a book you've read and you've moved that into a full-on presentation. So can you talk me briefly through that? Anything we can learn on that? Is that linking nicely with what you've been talking about?
Yeah, it's a different workshop. It's aimed at leadership teams in particular. And The Five Dysfunctions of a Team is a book that I read back in 2010 when our leadership team went through it. I was a brand new leader, and it blew my mind just as to how good this was, because you think about, you go to work for 8 hours, you've got 8 hours with your family, and then eight hours sleep essentially. So you take away weekends, you're roughly at work for a third of your time. Yeah. And you're working with these people closely, and you don't even know them. You don't know what makes them tick. Over a period of time, you might, but you really don't know them. And what Five Dysfunctions does, it just stops everything. I typically run these offsite. I think it's best to run these ones offsite, because it can get a little bit emotional for people as well, because we talk about the past, and one of the lead-ins is talk about a childhood memory. It could be good, it could be bad, but tell us something about your past that nobody in here really knows about you, and that sometimes leads to a few tears from people who you would never imagine to have tears as well. But once you've then got that first base layer of trust, it stays within the room. It doesn't go anywhere else. You can then move on to the next dysfunction, which is conflict. And we always think of conflict as a bad thing, but we're talking about good conflict here. I think you need good conflict to move forward, and then from then you you move on through the rest of it. I'm not going to go through all five dysfunctions, but it talks about inattention to results. It talks about holding people accountable in your team, and it talks about the leadership team is actually your number one team. So the quality manager probably thinks, well, my number one team is the quality department. Well, what this does, it breaks you out of the silo and gets you thinking more as a leadership team. And when you're firing as a leadership team together, you can move mountains. So it's something I've subscribed to for many years. I've done it with my leadership teams when I've been plant managers, when I've been I've done it for a few different teams, to be honest, and it's always worked out really well. What we've done with that is we've coupled it up with kind of personality tests. I'm sure you've heard of Insight's colours before, which is probably the main one. I'm looking at one at the moment called 16 Personalities, which is a really interesting one as well. It's free as well. So that's a little plug for them if you get a chance to take a look at that. And what it does, it allows you to take a look at your own personality, how you want to be treated, how you don't want to be treated, but then also I'll take a look at yours and I'll understand you a little bit more and say, well, this is probably the best way I can approach Mark. I know he likes this and I know he hates this. And it lays you all bare a little bit, but then by the end of the workshop, you are firing together, you are challenging one another a lot more, and you're going to get better results as a result of going through it as well. So if I was to ask people to read one book, and it's a fable, you can burn through it within a couple of nights, to be honest. It's not a long book at all, and it's a story about a person goes in as a CEO of a company, and she's got a very dysfunctional team, and these are the things what she has to do to kind of get them on track. And there's lots of aha moments in there as well. It's a brilliant read, and Patrick Lencioni's got lots of stuff on YouTube that's worth taking a look at as well. I think mixing it up with a kind of personality profile is a really strong way of doing it. So I'm looking forward to rolling that workshop out as well. I'm doing that one in middle of August with a company called Amcor over on the Cumbrian coast. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, nice, excellent. Look, I've really enjoyed this, Paul, and you know what? It's the first time I've probably spoken on here, talked to anyone about the importance of that safety piece, because it's one of those things where some people go, "Oh, safety," but it's such a big, important topic because it's so important for obvious reasons, because ultimately we need to keep people safe. But I love the fact today we've talked about the responsibility that everyone has in the team, Lee's having a team, how that can help the culture and everything with it, and there are things that people can do tomorrow. Sometimes things just feel too big to tackle, but actually the stuff you're talking about is, there's tangible things people can do tomorrow. And I think fair play to you, do what you're doing. It's amazing the fact you've left a tremendous career to do something so important, which I imagine, is a big leap of faith and quite nervy and to do so. But there's no better person to do it, and I'm sure it's going to be amazing. You're going to help a lot of people. So yeah, thank you for today, and thank you for doing what you're doing, Paul. I really appreciate it.
No, it's been my pleasure, Mark, and not having a script it's been great just to kind of talk, and I miss my team. I miss being a leader, but there's something telling me that there's something else out there that it sparked a fire in me, and I've got lots of things that I'd like to share, and hopefully, in the business of saving lives, that's how important it is to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds. So thank you for the time, and thank you for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it.
So, mate, look, you've been there, you've walked the walk, and there's no better person doing what you're doing. How do people contact you, Paul? What's the best way?
Oh, okay. So website launches today, this afternoon. Ably helped by actually my niece, Christy Monk. She's got Meze Media, who she's helped me get up and running with my website. So amplifiedleaders.co.uk, all one word. You'll be able to look me up. You'll be able to find me if you Google search me on there as well. I'm sure of that. So yeah, reach out if you're ready to take your leadership team off for a couple of days, if it's overdue and you want to get together. I've got 3 cracking workshops that will hopefully ignite something in you, spark something in you that will kind of bring your team closer together and make your plant safer, make it more productive. That's really what I'm peddling.
You're going to be a very busy man. But thank you, Paul. That was great. We appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Take care of yourself.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Manufacturing Leaders podcast. It absolutely means the world to me. Please let me know if you need any assistance. As a business, we look at providing partnerships with manufacturing engineering companies to really help their recruitment and retention. On the recruitment piece, anywhere from blue collar, semi-skilled staff, right the way up to C-suite level executive appointments, but also much more than that. We run events, so please let me know if you're interested in any of those. If you are interested indeed becoming a podcast guest, I'd be very, very keen to speak to you as well. More than happy to do so. But as a business, as I say, we look at key partnerships to really help your recruitment, your retention, your marketing, your training. We really believe in the partnership piece and being an extension of your business. So we're very proud to work in this sector. I love manufacturing engineering, and my staff are just as passionate about it as I am. So thank you once again for listening. Please get in touch to talk about anything we can do to help. Look forward to speaking to you very soon. Thank you.